Welcome to Mythology Lore, where ancient secrets meet modern curiosity. In today's video, we dive into a provocative question: why did the Vatican fear angels more than the devil? While demons are often cast as villains, angels, those radiant, winged beings, hold a far more complex and terrifying role in religious texts. From divine wrath to apocalyptic judgment, these celestial warriors weren't always messengers of peace. Could the Church have seen them as forces too powerful to control? Stick around as we unravel the myths, theology, and hidden fears that shape this divine paradox. Let's explore the shadow side of the sacred. The Watchers and the corruption of humanity, and exploration of the Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish apocalyptic text attributed to Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah, offers a compelling narrative that expands upon a brief passage in Genesis 6. It introduces a group of celestial beings called the Watchers, who descend from heaven to earth and bring about a dramatic shift in the course of human and cosmic history. These Watchers, originally holy angels, betray their divine mandate and unleash chaos by revealing forbidden knowledge and fathering a race of hybrid giants known as the Nephilim. Though not demonic in origin, the Watchers are portrayed as spiritual rebels, once divine, now fallen. Their story is one of power, temptation, and cosmic consequence, and it offers deep theological and symbolic implications that have influenced later Jewish and Christian eschatology. Origins and identity of the Watchers. The Watchers are first introduced in the Book of Enoch, particularly in the Book of the Watchers, 1 Enoch 1-36, a section dating to around the 3rd century BCE. The term Watcher translates from the Aramaic irim, meaning those who watch or those who are awake. These beings were tasked with observing humanity and serving as guardians over the earth. In their original capacity, the Watchers were divine agents, holy angels with a noble mission. But their role as sentinels and intermediaries between heaven and earth changes when a faction of these angels begins to lust after human women. In 1 Enoch 6, a group of 200 Watchers, led by a powerful angel named Semyaza, or Semjaza, descend to earth at Mount Hermon. There, they make a pact, swearing together to carry out their plan to take human wives and father children. This deliberate descent is not a mere fall, it is an act of collective rebellion, a breach of heavenly boundaries motivated by desire and curiosity. Forbidden unions and the birth of the Nephilim. The union between the Watchers and human women leads to the birth of the Nephilim, described as giants of great power and violence. The name Nephilim likely comes from the Hebrew root NPL, meaning to fall or fallen ones. These offspring are hybrid beings, part divine, part human, and are said to grow to great size, consuming all of humanity's resources and turning to cannibalism and bloodshed when the earth can no longer sustain them. In this narrative, the Nephilim symbolize the unnatural results of divine-human fusion, representing a distortion of creation. They are not only physically threatening but morally corrupt, bringing destruction and accelerating humanity's descent into depravity. The earth, once a balanced creation, becomes a corrupted and violent place. This myth serves as an etiological account, explaining the presence of evil, corruption, and suffering in the world before the flood. The Nephilim, like the Watchers who fathered them, are not merely characters in a supernatural story but metaphors for excess, chaos, and transgression. They reflect what happens when boundaries, between heaven and earth, divine and human, knowledge and ignorance, are broken. The teaching of forbidden knowledge. One of the most significant aspects of the Watchers' transgression is not merely their physical union with humans, but the knowledge they impart. This forbidden wisdom includes skills and technologies that accelerate the corruption of mankind. According to 1 Enoch 8, each of the Watchers taught specific domains of knowledge. Azazel taught humanity to make swords, knives, shields, and armor, introducing the art of warfare. Semyaza taught enchantments and root cuttings, early forms of sorcery and magic. Barakijal taught astrology and the movement of the stars. Kokabel shared the knowledge of constellations. Ezekiel taught the signs of the clouds, meteorology. Arakiel revealed the signs of the earth, geography or perhaps geology. Shamziel instructed humans in the signs of the sun. Sariel explained the phases of the moon. This transfer of knowledge is strikingly similar to the myth of Prometheus in Greek mythology, where a divine being defies the gods to bring fire, and thus civilization, to humanity. But unlike Prometheus, whose gift to humanity is often interpreted as positive or at least ambiguous, the Watcher's gift is almost entirely negative in Enoch. The knowledge they offer leads to warfare, vanity, through the teaching of cosmetics and jewelry, and occult practices. The text suggests that certain types of knowledge are inherently dangerous, not because they are false, but because they are misused. The divine order was meant to protect humanity from knowledge it could not handle. In revealing secrets prematurely, the Watchers not only violate heavenly law but also accelerate humanity's moral decay. Not demons, but fallen angels. A crucial theological detail in Enoch's narrative is that the Watchers are not demons in origin. They are not part of a devilish race bent on destruction from the beginning. Rather, they are angels, beings created by God with good intentions, who stray from their assigned purpose. This makes their fall all the more tragic and complex. They were not evil by nature but chose rebellion. In a sense, their fall mirrors that of Lucifer in later Christian theology, though the Book of Enoch develops this idea independently. This distinction also clarifies their role. They are not chaotic agents like demons in the New Testament who seek to torment or possess. The Watchers corrupt through temptation, curiosity, and disobedience. They embody the dangers of unchecked ambition and desire, especially when divine boundaries are ignored. In this way, they are more like tragic figures than purely malicious ones. Judgment and cosmic consequence. The Watchers' rebellion does not go unnoticed. The archangels, Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, and Uriel, are sent by God to respond. Their actions are swift and severe. Raphael binds Azazel and casts him into a desert, covering him with jagged rocks. Gabriel is commanded to destroy the Nephilim. Michael is sent to imprison Semyaza and the rest of the Watchers in the depths of the earth, in dark and fiery pits, where they will await the final judgment. The punishment of the Watchers is deeply tied to apocalyptic themes. Their imprisonment in the abyss foreshadows later Christian ideas of hell and the binding of Satan. The flood of Noah, presented in Enoch as a response to the chaos caused by the Watchers and the Nephilim, is not merely an act of divine wrath but a cosmic cleansing, a restoration of divine order. Enoch himself plays a key role as the righteous scribe who intercedes with God on behalf of the fallen Watchers. But his intercession fails. God refuses to forgive them, citing the gravity of their sin and the irreversible corruption they caused. This refusal underscores a stark theological principle: some transgressions are so severe that even divine mercy has its limits. Symbolism and influence. The Watcher's narrative is rich with symbolic meaning. At one level, it is a myth about cosmic order and chaos. At another, it reflects real historical concerns. The forbidden knowledge, weaponry, sorcery, astrology, mirrors anxieties about the rapid development of human civilization and the potential for self-destruction. The Nephilim may symbolize oppressive warrior kings or tyrants from ancient memory, whose size and power made them seem like demigods. The story also addresses theodicy, the question of why evil exists if God is good. In Enoch, evil is not God's creation but results from the misuse of free will by divine beings. It is a cosmic accident with disastrous consequences, not a flaw in divine design. The Book of Enoch was highly influential in the Second Temple period, shaping Jewish apocalyptic literature and later Christian writings. The concept of fallen angels and their punishment can be found in the New Testament, particularly in 2 Peter 2 verse 4 and Jude 1 verse 6, which directly allude to angels who sinned and were cast into gloomy dungeons. Even the early church fathers, such as Tertullian and Irenaeus, drew upon Enochian traditions, though the book was eventually excluded from the canonical Bible in most Christian traditions, except the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which still considers it scripture. Contemporary reflections. In modern times, the story of the Watchers has been reinterpreted in numerous ways, through literature, film, occultism, and even pseudoscientific theories about ancient aliens. These reinterpretations often emphasize the idea of divine knowledge being withheld from or given to humanity, playing into themes of conspiracy and hidden wisdom. But beyond these modern takes, the Book of Enoch offers enduring insights into the nature of power, responsibility, and moral order. The Watcher's fall is not a tale of foreign demons invading a pure world, but of familiar, once trusted beings succumbing to temptation. Their sin lies not in their nature, but in their choices, reminding us that even the highest can fall when boundaries are ignored. The story of the Watchers in the Book of Enoch is a profound and unsettling myth, rich with theological and symbolic depth. These angels were not demons, but holy beings who fell from grace, not through a moment of weakness, but through a collective decision to abandon their divine calling. Their descent led to the birth of the Nephilim, the teaching of forbidden knowledge, and the corruption of the earth. Through this narrative, Enoch presents a cautionary tale about the misuse of knowledge, the fragility of divine order, and the limits of mercy. It is a cosmic drama that explains the presence of evil in the world not as a flaw in creation, but as a tragic rebellion, one that echoes through apocalyptic literature and continues to resonate today. Lucifer, the morning star, pride, ambition, and the fall of the brightest angel. Before he became the devil, Lucifer was the morning star, a seraph of unparalleled beauty, brilliance, and authority in the celestial hierarchy. His name, derived from the Latin lux, light, and fere, to bear, literally means light-bearer. This title, often associated with the planet Venus shining in the dawn sky, symbolized his position as the most radiant of angels. In Christian theology and literature, Lucifer's fall from heaven has traditionally been cast as a cautionary tale about rebellion against divine authority. Yet, if we look deeper into this myth, a more nuanced picture emerges, one in which Lucifer's descent was not born of inherent evil, but of pride, ambition, and ultimately, free will. His fall becomes a story not of monstrosity but of tragic beauty, framing the devil as a being who was punished not for malice, but for seeking divinity on his own terms. The nature of Lucifer before the fall. In Christian tradition, especially as drawn from interpretations of Isaiah 14 verse 12, "How you are fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning." Lucifer is imagined as the highest of all angels. While this passage originally referred to the fall of the Babylonian king, it was later reinterpreted by Christian thinkers to refer to the devil. Theologians such as Saint Jerome and later church fathers cemented the identification of Lucifer as a fallen angel. He was believed to be a seraph, the highest order of angels, closest to God in the celestial hierarchy. Lucifer's beauty, wisdom, and power were unrivaled. Ezekiel 28 verses 12 to 17, often interpreted as an allegorical description of Lucifer, portrays him as a being full of wisdom and perfect in beauty, created blameless, walking in the Garden of Eden adorned with precious stones. Such imagery reflects the awe-inspiring nature of Lucifer before his fall. He was not only magnificent in form but also functioned as a divine governor, possibly tasked with overseeing other angels or elements of creation. What makes Lucifer unique in this context is that his fall is not attributed to temptation by an external evil, no serpent, no Satan whispering lies into his ear. His downfall begins internally, in the corridors of his own heart and mind. It begins with pride. Pride and the seed of rebellion. Pride, in Christian theology, is the original and most serious of the 7 deadly sins because it gives rise to all others. In Lucifer, pride was not simple arrogance, it was a desire to ascend beyond his station, to rival or even surpass God. In Isaiah 14 verses 13 to 14, again traditionally attributed to Lucifer, the voice says, "I will ascend to heaven, I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will make myself like the Most High." This was not a desire to destroy or corrupt but to ascend, to elevate himself to the plane of divinity. Herein lies the tragedy. Lucifer did not fall because he hated God, he fell because he loved himself too much. His desire was to be more than an angel, to be equal with God, to claim a divine agency that had not been given to him. This ambition is not unlike the human impulse for self-realization, for reaching one's fullest potential. In this way, Lucifer becomes a mirror of mankind, created with intelligence and beauty, yet given free will, which can lead either to harmony with God or to catastrophic self-aggrandizement. The role of free will. Lucifer's fall underscores the importance of free will in the divine order. Angels, like humans, were created with the ability to choose. Without the potential to defy God, their worship would be hollow, automatic, a kind of celestial programming. Lucifer's choice, then, validates the reality of free will in creation. He chose pride, he chose ambition. In doing so, he also chose separation from God. But what if that choice was not purely malicious? What if Lucifer's ambition was, in some sense, noble or tragic rather than evil? After all, seeking knowledge, wisdom, or even greatness is not inherently sinful. It becomes so when it violates the divine harmony, when it puts the self above the collective good, or above the Creator. This interpretation opens the door to seeing Lucifer not simply as the villain of creation but as a complex character who embodies the danger and beauty of autonomy. In exercising his will, he sought to redefine his existence, to become more than what he was created to be. He rebelled not because he hated the light, but because he wanted to be its source. Theological implications: a devil of tragedy, not just evil. Framing the devil in this light offers profound theological implications. Traditionally, Satan is the enemy of God, the tempter of men, the father of lies. He is seen as the embodiment of evil, diametrically opposed to all that is holy. But the story of Lucifer complicates this. Before he was Satan, he was an angel who fell not from malice but from misdirected greatness. This view is not meant to exonerate him but to contextualize his fall. In Paradise Lost, John Milton famously explores this perspective, portraying Lucifer as a tragic hero whose famous line, "Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven," captures both the grandeur and the folly of his ambition. Milton's Satan is charismatic, persuasive, even sympathetic. He refuses subjugation, even if that means suffering. He becomes the author of his own destiny, though it leads to ruin. The tragedy here lies not just in the fall but in what was lost, the potential for greatness redirected into rebellion. This echoes the human condition: our greatest strengths can become our greatest weaknesses when turned inward. Lucifer and the human psyche. Lucifer's story resonates deeply with the human psyche because it represents an archetype that appears in myths, literature, and psychology, the brilliant being undone by pride. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychoanalyst, saw Lucifer as a symbol of the shadow self, the repressed part of our personality that contains both evil and untapped potential. In Jungian terms, the devil represents the consequences of denying our inner darkness rather than integrating it. Lucifer's desire to define his own divinity can also be seen in the modern individualist ethos, where personal empowerment is prized. In this way, he becomes an emblem not of sin but of the perils of unchecked self-determination. What begins as empowerment can become alienation, just as Lucifer's quest for self-sovereignty led to isolation and damnation. The devil as a cautionary tale. Understanding the devil as a fallen angel rather than a creature of pure evil serves as a powerful cautionary tale. It warns not against ambition itself, but against ambition divorced from humility and wisdom. Pride becomes dangerous when it blinds us to our limitations and disconnects us from the larger order of which we are a part. Lucifer's fall illustrates that the line between greatness and ruin is razor-thin. The higher one stands, the farther one can fall. It teaches that power and beauty, when not tempered by virtue, can lead to destruction, not just of others, but of oneself. This reframing also humanizes the concept of evil. If the devil once was good, then evil is not a separate substance or entity but a corruption of the good. It is potential gone awry, beauty turned inward, freedom misused. This makes the battle between good and evil not a war between distant cosmic forces but a conflict within the soul of every individual. Redemption, a question left open. An intriguing question arises from this perspective: could Lucifer ever be redeemed? Traditional theology says no, his fall was final, his rebellion eternal. Yet if his fall was due to the misuse of free will, and if free will continues to operate, could repentance ever be possible? This idea remains speculative and controversial, yet it reflects a deeper longing in the human heart, the hope that no one is beyond redemption. Some mystical traditions suggest that all beings, even the most fallen, are ultimately drawn back to the divine source. In such visions, even the devil might one day kneel not in defeat, but in reconciliation. Whether or not one accepts this possibility, the very question reaffirms the moral complexity of Lucifer's story. He is not merely a monster, he is a symbol of the heights we might achieve and the depths to which we can fall. Reframing the devil. In viewing Lucifer not simply as the devil but as the morning star who fell from grace, we are invited to see his story not only as a tale of rebellion but of tragic potential. His fall was not the eruption of pure evil but the flowering of pride, ambition, and the assertion of free will against divine order. This interpretation does not seek to glorify the devil but to understand him, to see in his story a mirror of our own struggles with identity, autonomy, and limitation. It reminds us that even the most luminous beings can be undone by the shadows they cast. Lucifer's tale stands as a testament to the complexity of creation and the moral tensions at the heart of freedom. He is a figure who defied heaven not to destroy it, but to become it, a choice that cost him everything. In that choice lies the tragedy, the warning, and the enduring mystery of the morning star.
Enoch and the Cosmic End Times, a visionary's journey into divine judgment. The Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish apocalyptic text attributed to Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah, presents one of the most profound and elaborate visions of divine judgment and cosmic order in all ancient literature. Unlike the canonical scriptures that focus heavily on earthly events and historical covenants, the Enochian tradition offers a wider, almost cosmic lens through which divine justice is administered, not just upon humans but upon all of creation. Enoch the righteous, a man taken by God. Enoch first appears in Genesis 5 verses 21 to 24, where he is described as a man who walked with God, and was taken by him, bypassing death. The brief biblical mention left room for speculation, myth, and theological exploration. Later Jewish and Christian traditions, especially in the Book of Enoch, also called 1 Enoch, expand on this enigmatic figure, transforming him into a prophet, scribe of heaven and seer of the mysteries of creation and judgment. According to 1 Enoch, Enoch is not merely a righteous man but becomes a heavenly intermediary, a prophet lifted into the heavens to witness divine secrets and to write them down for humanity. His righteousness earns him access to realms that even the angels tread with awe. He records the movements of stars, the fates of fallen angels, and the mechanics of divine judgment. His story becomes a conduit for understanding cosmic justice, angelic hierarchies, and the impending apocalypse. Enoch's role as the heavenly scribe. The Book of Enoch describes Enoch as the scribe of righteousness, a role that places him among the most unique prophetic figures in religious literature. Rather than simply proclaiming God's word, Enoch records it. He is shown being given books and scrolls in heaven. Books filled with secrets of time, space, morality, and destiny. In 1 Enoch 89:1-9, he receives heavenly tablets that contain divine decrees, including the fate of nations and angels. This image of a mortal becoming a cosmic historian and archivist suggests that divine judgment is not arbitrary. Everything is documented. The role of the scribe implies a structured moral universe where all actions, of humans, angels, and celestial bodies, are observed and accounted for. Enoch's writings become warnings to generations, especially concerning the end times, which he details in terrifying grandeur. Visions of the end times, not just earthly but cosmic. In the Enochian apocalyptic narrative, the end times, or the Day of Judgment, are not merely events localized to Earth. They are universal in scope, affecting all layers of creation. The Book of the Watchers, 1 Enoch 1-36, and the Book of the Heavenly Luminaries, 1 Enoch 72-82, both elaborate on a reality where the cosmos itself is implicated in moral law and participates in judgment. Cosmic participation. In Enoch's visions, the stars and heavenly bodies are not inert matter but spiritual entities or forces governed by divine law. These luminaries follow precise paths set by God, as described in 1 Enoch 72-75, which outlines the solar and lunar calendars. When stars deviate from their paths, It symbolizes rebellion, just as the Watchers, a group of angels, deviated from their divine missions and descended to earth. This rebellion of stars and angels parallels human rebellion. Just as humans are judged for wickedness, so too are the angels judged for transgressing their assigned roles. The punishment of the Watchers is portrayed in chilling detail in 1 Enoch 10, where God commands the archangel Raphael to bind Azazel, a leader of the Watchers, in the desert and cast him into a dark pit until the final judgment. This introduces the concept of cosmic accountability. The very elements of the universe, angels, stars, winds, and waters, are not neutral. They are morally significant and capable of sin or obedience. Angels, elements, and judgment. The role of angels. Angels in Enoch's vision are not all equal. They are organized into hierarchies, some loyal to God, others fallen. The loyal ones are agents of divine order. For example, Michael is the protector of the righteous. Raphael is the healer of the earth. Gabriel oversees punishment and warfare. Uriel governs celestial phenomena. These archangels are tasked with overseeing not only humanity but the natural elements. This suggests a spiritual governance of physical phenomena, where weather, geography, and even natural disasters are linked to spiritual realities. The elements as divine witnesses. One of the most fascinating elements in the Enochian worldview is the personification and moralization of nature. Winds, waters, fire, and celestial bodies are described not merely as forces of nature but as witnesses and agents of divine justice. In 1 Enoch 60, Enoch is given a vision where he sees the secrets of the thunder and lightning, and the spirits of the sea and rivers. These elements are not random or chaotic but are governed by angelic beings, and they will play roles in the cosmic upheaval during the end times. For instance, the seas may rise, the stars may fall, and winds may tear across the earth, not as blind catastrophes, but as intentional acts of divine judgment. This theme echoes in 1 Enoch 80, where cosmic signs like irregular solar and lunar cycles, darkened skies, and erratic weather are seen as harbingers of the end, not mere natural phenomena. The fall of the Watchers, a template for judgment. The story of the Watchers, fallen angels who descended to earth and taught humanity forbidden knowledge, serves as a template for divine judgment. The Watchers corrupted both themselves and humanity, and their punishment is used to foreshadow the fate of all who rebel against divine law. According to 1 Enoch 6-16, these angels take human wives, beget the Nephilim, giants, and teach secrets of war, astrology, sorcery, and seduction. Their actions disrupt the moral and cosmic balance. As a result, God commands their imprisonment in a subterranean realm until the final day when they will be cast into the abyss of fire. This narrative reflects a deeply ethical universe, where knowledge and power are not neutral, and where moral boundaries govern even the divine beings. The fall of the Watchers suggests that not even angels are exempt from moral accountability. Final judgment, restoration through cosmic fire. The climax of Enoch's apocalyptic vision is not only destruction but restoration. The final judgment involves a purifying fire that cleanses creation of all unrighteousness. This idea is elaborated in 1 Enoch 91-105, often called the Epistle of Enoch, where the righteous are promised new heavens and a new earth. In 1 Enoch 91:16, Enoch speaks of a time when the first heaven shall depart and pass away, a new heaven shall appear, and all the powers of the heavens shall give sevenfold light. This is not merely poetic language, it suggests cosmic renewal. Just as the old creation was marred by rebellion, by humans and angels alike, the new creation will be an ordered, harmonious cosmos under divine sovereignty. The final judgment, then, is not just about punishing the wicked. It is a reordering of reality, a cosmic reset where the righteous shine like stars and creation is restored to its original purpose. A universe under moral law. What makes Enoch's vision so compelling is its moral architecture. In modern secular thought, the universe is often seen as indifferent, governed by impersonal laws of physics and chance. But in Enoch's apocalyptic worldview, the universe is deeply personal, structured, and ethical. Stars follow paths not just because of gravity but because they obey divine will. Angels have roles not just as messengers, but as governors of creation. Natural disasters are not random, they are responses to moral corruption. History is not chaotic, it is unfolding according to a divine timetable. This theological cosmology transforms how one views existence. It implies that every action matters, not just on earth but in heaven and beyond. The smallest injustice echoes into the stars. The greatest righteousness brings harmony to all of creation. Enoch's vision as cosmic theology. Enoch's revelations are not mere myth or esoteric curiosity, they offer a cosmic theology. He takes the idea of divine judgment out of the courtroom and into the cosmos. His visions break the boundary between heaven and earth, between the physical and the spiritual, between time and eternity. Enoch, the man who walked with God, returns with messages that shake the foundations of both heaven and earth. In his visions, the end times are not only about wars or plagues, but about a final reckoning that reaches into the stars, the winds, the angels, and the waters. It is a drama of ultimate justice, revealing a universe held together not just by atoms or energy, but by divine righteousness. In a world that often feels chaotic and amoral, Enoch's apocalyptic message reminds us of a deeper truth. The universe is watched, recorded, and judged, and its final destiny is not destruction, but restoration through justice. The Great Flood, a precursor to final judgment. The story of the Great Flood is among the most profound narratives in ancient religious literature. Found in the Book of Genesis, echoed in the Book of Enoch, and mirrored across global mythologies, from Mesopotamian epics to Hindu texts, it speaks of a cataclysmic deluge sent by God to cleanse the earth of rampant wickedness. But beyond its historical or mythological significance, many scholars and theologians interpret the flood as a prototype or foreshadowing of a greater, more final event, the Last Judgment. This essay explores the Great Flood not just as a divine punishment of the past but as a symbolic precursor to the eschatological judgment still to come. Drawing on biblical texts, apocryphal literature, and theological insights, we will examine how the flood functions as a cosmic warning, revealing patterns of divine justice, mercy, and ultimate restoration. The context and cause of the flood. In Genesis 6 verse 5, the Bible declares, "The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time." Humanity had become so corrupt that even creation itself seemed polluted by sin. In the Book of Enoch, this moral decay is intensified with the introduction of the Watchers, fallen angels who descend to earth, take human wives and teach forbidden knowledge to mankind. Their offspring, the Nephilim, giants, contribute to a world filled with violence and perversion. God's decision to bring the flood is framed not as random wrath but as an act of cosmic reordering. The flood was divine justice against a creation gone awry. It was both a punishment and a reset, a washing away of the impure to start anew. However, the story doesn't end with destruction. Noah, described as a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, becomes the vehicle of divine mercy. Through him, a remnant is preserved. The ark becomes a symbol of salvation amid judgment. 2. Echoes of the flood in later scriptures. The flood narrative reverberates through the rest of the Bible. It's not merely a self-contained story but a thematic prototype. Consider the following parallels. 1. Jesus in the days of Noah. In the Gospels, Jesus draws a direct comparison between the days of Noah and the conditions leading up to the final judgment. As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. Matthew 24 verse 37. Here, Jesus makes the point that just as people were eating, drinking, and marrying up until the day Noah entered the ark, so too will people be living normal lives until divine judgment suddenly falls upon them. The flood becomes a prophetic mirror for eschatological judgment, unexpected, swift, and inevitable. 2. Peter's epistles. In 2 Peter 2 verse 5 and 3:6-7, the apostle emphasizes the flood as a precedent. By these waters also the world of that time was deluged and destroyed. By the same word the present heavens and earth are reserved for fire, being kept for the day of judgment and destruction of the ungodly. Peter identifies a pattern: past water judgment, flood, and future fire judgment, final judgment. The former is a warning of the latter. In both cases, divine patience precedes judgment, allowing room for repentance. 3. Theological themes connecting flood and final judgment. Several theological motifs connect the flood with the eschatological judgment, deepening its typological meaning. 1. Divine justice and holiness. God's holiness cannot tolerate unchecked evil. The flood demonstrates that divine justice is not arbitrary, it's a response to sin that has reached its fullest measure. Similarly, the final judgment is portrayed in Revelation as the culmination of a long period of divine patience, after which sin is judged eternally. 2. Remnant and redemption. Just as Noah and his family are saved through the ark, so the righteous will be spared during the final judgment. The ark is a powerful symbol of Christ, a vessel of salvation, providing refuge from divine wrath. This theme of remnant theology appears throughout Scripture, highlighting God's commitment to preserve the faithful even amid catastrophe. 3. Cosmic renewal. After the flood, the world is not left in ruins. A covenant is made, the earth is repopulated, and a rainbow signifies a new beginning. This pattern is echoed in Revelation 21, where after judgment, a new heaven and new earth are established. The idea is clear. Judgment is not the end but a prelude to restoration. 4. The Book of Enoch's expansion on the flood. The Book of Enoch, particularly 1 Enoch chapters 6 to 16, offers a deeper spiritual backdrop to the flood. Here, the flood is not only a punishment for human sin but a necessary act to undo the corrupting influence of the fallen angels. Enoch is given visions of heavenly courts where judgment is passed on these angels and their giant offspring. In this narrative, God is seen as both judge and cosmic restorer. The earth cries out under the weight of the Nephilim's violence, and the waters of the deep, the abyss, are used to cleanse and imprison. Enoch's visions point toward an ultimate judgment when all wicked powers, including rebellious angels, are cast into an eternal lake of fire. This layered cosmology links the flood directly with apocalyptic themes: divine counsels, spiritual warfare, and final accountability for both humans and celestial beings. V. Apocalyptic literature and judgment imagery. Jewish and Christian apocalyptic writings frequently return to flood-like imagery when describing the final judgment. Daniel 9 verse 26 refers to destruction that will come like a flood. Revelation 12 verses 15 to 16 depicts the serpent sending a flood to destroy the woman, only for the earth to swallow it, again suggesting judgment mixed with deliverance. Isaiah 54 verses 9 to 10 recalls the Noahic covenant as a guarantee that God's mercy will triumph over wrath, even in future judgments. This flood motif becomes an archetype for divine intervention, terrifying, cleansing, yet ultimately redemptive. 6. Moral and eschatological warnings. Understanding the flood as a precursor to final judgment isn't just academic. It carries moral urgency. The days of Noah were marked by complacency, indulgence, and spiritual blindness. People ignored warnings until it was too late. Jesus' teachings echo this: therefore keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come. Matthew 24 verse 42. The lesson is timeless. The patience of God is not infinite. Judgment delayed is not judgment cancelled. Just as Noah's generation was caught unaware, so too can modern humanity lull itself into a false sense of security. The flood story then becomes an alarm bell, a sacred echo reminding us of the importance of repentance, vigilance, and faith. 7. The Ark, symbol of salvation through Christ. Perhaps the most enduring image from the flood narrative is the Ark itself. Crafted under divine instructions, it is the only safe place during the deluge. In Christian theology, the Ark is a clear symbol of Jesus Christ, God's appointed refuge from judgment. 1 Peter 3 verses 20 to 21 draws a direct parallel between the Ark and baptism, saying, "In it only a few people, 8 in all, were saved through water, and this water symbolizes baptism that now saves you also." Here, water serves both as an agent of judgment and salvation. Baptism symbolizes death to the old life and rebirth into a new one, just as the flood washed away the old world to usher in a new era. 8. Final judgment, fire, not water. Where the flood used water, the final judgment will use fire. The shift in element reflects a progression in divine dealings. Water cleanses, but fire purifies and finalizes. Fire destroys but also refines. It leaves no ambiguity, only the eternal separation of good from evil. Revelation 20 verses 11 to 15 describes a great white throne, books being opened, and souls judged according to their deeds. The imagery is stark. Those not found in the book of life are cast into the lake of fire, a place of final separation from God. This fiery judgment is not without hope. Revelation ends with the image of a new Jerusalem, where God dwells with his people and every tear is wiped away. Like the post-flood world, the end is not desolation but restoration. From flood to final fire. The Great Flood is not just a story of the past, it is a mirror held up to the present and a warning about the future. It encapsulates the dual nature of divine judgment, terrifying yet redemptive, severe yet merciful. It teaches that sin has consequences, but obedience leads to salvation. Just as Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord, so too can we find refuge in Christ, the ark of our age. The flood reminds us that history moves toward a climax, a final reckoning and a new beginning. We are living in the days of Noah, once again, days filled with violence, pride, and spiritual apathy. But just as God provided an ark, he has also provided a savior. The choice then is ours: heed the warning and step into the ark, or ignore it and be swept away by the flood, or fire, to come. The identity of the fallen angels. Judgment of the angels and the Nephilim. The concept of divine judgment has been a central theme in Judeo-Christian theology. Among the more mysterious and often controversial aspects of this doctrine is the judgment of angels, specifically the fallen angels, and their connection with the Nephilim, beings mentioned briefly in the early chapters of Genesis. This topic, though enigmatic, touches on deep themes of rebellion, divine order, and the consequences of transgression against God's law, both in the spiritual and earthly realms. This essay explores the biblical and extra-biblical foundations for understanding the judgment of the angels and the Nephilim, drawing from sources such as Genesis, the Book of Enoch, 2 Peter, Jude, and Revelation, as well as historical interpretations from Jewish and Christian traditions. Who are the angels and the Nephilim? 1. The angels in question. In Scripture, angels are spiritual beings created by God, serving as messengers, ministers, and agents of his divine will. While most angels remain loyal to God, some chose to rebel. These rebellious angels are often referred to as fallen angels. The most notable among them is Satan, but many others are believed to have joined him in defiance. 2. The Nephilim. The Nephilim are first introduced in Genesis 6 verses 1 to 4. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, "My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown." The term sons of God, Hebrew, B'nai Ha-Elohim, has long been interpreted in different ways. The most ancient and widely accepted interpretation, particularly in Jewish tradition, is that these were angels, more specifically fallen angels, who took human women as wives. Their offspring were the Nephilim, often described as giants or mighty men. 2. The rebellion and sin of the angels. 1. The Book of Enoch's account. While the Genesis passage is brief, the Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish apocalyptic text, not part of the biblical canon for most traditions, elaborates extensively on this event. It identifies a group of 200 angels known as the Watchers, led by figures like Semyaza and Azazel, who descended to earth and corrupted humanity. According to 1 Enoch 6-16, these angels took human wives, taught forbidden knowledge, warfare, sorcery, astrology, cosmetics, etc. Produced hybrid offspring, the Nephilim, who became violent and destructive. Defiled themselves in the natural order. 2. The consequences of the angels' sin. God judged these angels severely. And the Lord said unto Michael, Go, bind Simjaza and his associates, in the valleys of the earth till the day of their judgment. 1 Enoch 10:11-13. The judgment involved binding these angels in the abyss until the final judgment. Azazel in particular, is cast into a desert and covered with rocks. 3. Biblical affirmations of angelic judgment. Though the Book of Enoch is not canonical in most Christian traditions, except the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, New Testament writers seem to reference its themes and even specific passages. 1. 2 Peter 2 verses 4-5. For if God did not spare the angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell and committed them to chains of gloomy darkness to be kept until the judgment, if he did not spare the ancient world but preserved Noah. This passage directly links the sin of certain angels with the time of Noah, reinforcing the Genesis-Enoch connection. The Greek word translated as hell is Tartarus, a term used in Greek mythology for the deep abyss where rebellious beings are imprisoned. 2. Jude 1 verses 6-7. And the angels who did not stay within their own position of authority, but left their proper dwelling, he has kept in eternal chains under gloomy darkness until the judgment of the great day. Jude explicitly mentions angels abandoning their proper domain, an apparent reference to the Watchers descending to earth. He likens their sin to Sodom and Gomorrah, cities known for sexual immorality and unnatural desire. These passages reveal that a specific group of angels committed a grave sin. They are now bound in chains, awaiting future judgment. Their actions are tied to a rebellion against divine order, especially regarding sexuality and human corruption. 4. The judgment of the Nephilim. 1. The flood as judgment. The Nephilim, as the unnatural offspring of angels and humans, were a major reason for the corruption of the earth. Genesis continues, The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become. The Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. Genesis 6 verses 5-6. The solution was the flood, which wiped out all except Noah and his family. The destruction of the Nephilim was part of this purging. 2. Were there Nephilim after the flood? Numbers 13:33 records the words of the Israelite spies. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes and we looked the same to them. This reference has led to speculation that some Nephilim survived or reappeared after the flood. Some scholars believe the term was reused for later giants, like the Anakim or Rephaim, while others propose post-flood genetic corruption or metaphorical language. However, it is clear that the original Nephilim, the offspring of the Watchers, were destroyed in the flood as part of divine judgment. V. Final judgment of the angels. 1. Awaiting judgment. The fallen angels, those who sinned before the flood, are not yet fully judged. As Peter and Jude state, they are kept in chains, awaiting the final judgment. 2. Revelation's vision. In the book of Revelation, we see glimpses of this final judgment. Revelation 12 describes a war in heaven between Michael and his angels and the dragon, Satan, and his angels. The dragon is cast down to earth. Revelation 20 verse 10 speaks of the lake of fire as the final destination for the devil and his followers. And the devil who had deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, and will be tormented day and night forever and ever. Although it specifically names Satan, it is assumed that the rebellious angels will share in this fate. Matthew 25 verse 41 confirms this. Then he will say to those on his left, Depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. 3. The role of humans in angelic judgment. A surprising statement appears in 1 Corinthians 6 verse 3. Do you not know that we will judge angels? Paul reminds the Corinthian believers that in the age to come, redeemed humanity will participate in God's justice, even over angelic beings. This underscores the seriousness of angelic rebellion and the high calling of the redeemed. 6. Theological implications. 1. The cosmic consequences of rebellion. The story of the fallen angels and the Nephilim emphasizes that sin is not just a human issue, it's a cosmic rebellion. Spiritual beings who were created good and powerful chose to rebel, corrupting the earth. Their judgment reflects that no being is above God's law, and that even the highest angels are accountable. 2. Boundaries in creation. The sin of the angels involved crossing divinely established boundaries, angels taking human form, engaging in sexuality and producing unnatural offspring. This aligns with other biblical judgments where transgressing God's created order, e.g., Sodom, Babel, results in divine wrath. 3. Divine justice and mercy. God's judgment on the Nephilim and the angels was immediate and severe, but he also preserved Noah, demonstrating his commitment to justice and mercy. The final judgment still awaits, a sign of God's patience and timing. 4. Spiritual warfare and vigilance. For believers today, the judgment of the angels serves as a warning and a call to vigilance. It reveals that spiritual rebellion has tangible effects on earth, and that spiritual warfare is real. Yet it also points to the certainty that evil will be judged. 7. Contemporary interpretations and controversies. Modern scholars and theologians hold differing views on these accounts. Literal view. Many ancient and some modern interpreters take the Genesis 6 and Enoch narratives literally, believing that angels indeed mated with human women. Sethite view. Others argue that sons of God refers to the righteous line of Seth and the daughters of men, to the ungodly line of Cain. Mythological or allegorical view. Some suggest the stories are symbolic of corruption or mythological in nature, not to be read literally. Despite the debate, early Jewish and Christian writings, like Enoch, Jubilees and the Epistles, strongly support a supernatural understanding of these events. The judgment of the angels and the Nephilim is a rich and sobering topic. It reflects God's intolerance for rebellion and corruption, even among the celestial beings. The sins of the fallen angels disrupted both heaven and earth, necessitating divine intervention through the flood and future judgment. Though mysterious and at times speculative, these stories teach enduring truths. God's justice is impartial, boundaries matter in creation, and divine order will ultimately be restored. As the faithful await the final judgment, these accounts inspire awe, caution, and hope in the sovereign plan of God. The identity of the fallen angels. The concept of fallen angels is one of the most compelling and enigmatic themes in religious literature. These beings, once divine, are portrayed as cast out of heaven due to rebellion, pride, or moral corruption. Their stories are foundational to the theological framework of evil and cosmic struggle in many traditions, especially within Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. This essay explores the identity of the fallen angels by examining their origins, the scriptural and extra-biblical references, the symbolic meanings ascribed to them, and how they have been interpreted over time. Origins of the concept. The term fallen angel refers to those angels who were expelled from heaven due to disobedience to God. Though the Bible does not use the phrase explicitly, the concept is strongly implied in several texts. The most referenced source is Revelation 12 verses 7-9, which describes a war in heaven where Michael and his angels fight against the dragon and his angels, interpreted as Satan and his followers. The passage concludes, "The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil or Satan who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth and his angels with him." This foundational image sets the stage for understanding fallen angels as rebellious beings who once held celestial status. However, the most detailed account of the fall of angels is found not in the canonical texts of the Bible, but in extra-biblical literature, especially the Book of Enoch, a Jewish apocalyptic text that expands on Genesis 6 verses 1-4. The sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. The Book of Enoch elaborates on this passage, naming the fallen angels as watchers, a group of 200 angels who descended to earth, lusted after human women, and fathered the Nephilim, giant, violent beings. Their leader, Semjaza or Semiaza, and his cohort, including Azazel, are condemned for corrupting humanity and teaching forbidden knowledge such as weaponry, sorcery, and cosmetics. Biblical and extra-biblical references. Though fallen angels are not a major focus of canonical scripture, Their presence can be inferred in a few key passages. 1. Isaiah 14 verses 12 to 15. This passage refers to a figure called Lucifer, Latin for light bringer, described as having fallen from heaven. How you have fallen from heaven, morning star, son of the dawn. Though this is primarily a taunt against the king of Babylon, later Christian interpretation associated Lucifer with Satan, identifying him as a high angel who rebelled against God due to pride. 2. Ezekiel 28 verses 12 to 17. This oracle against the king of Tyre includes imagery of a being who was the model of perfection, blameless in his ways until wickedness was found in him. Again, though originally intended as a metaphor for earthly arrogance, theologians have read it as an allusion to Satan's origin. 3. Jude 1 verse 6 and 2 Peter 2 verse 4. Both New Testament epistles refer to angels who sinned and are now kept in darkness, bound with everlasting chains. These references align with the narrative in 1 Enoch and demonstrate that early Christians accepted or were at least familiar with the idea of rebellious angels punished for their transgressions. Names and identities of fallen angels. Various traditions and texts assign names and identities to fallen angels. The Book of Enoch is the most detailed in this regard, listing 20 leaders of the fallen watchers. Some notable names include Simjaza, the leader who convinced the others to join in his rebellion. Azazel, accused of teaching humanity warfare and cosmetics, punished by being bound in a desert. Armoros, Kokabil, Barakiel, other named watchers with specific roles in corrupting humanity. In Christian tradition, the most prominent fallen angel is Lucifer, commonly equated with Satan. According to post-biblical interpretations, Lucifer was a high-ranking archangel who became prideful and sought to ascend above God, based largely on Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28. Consequently, he and a third of the angels were cast out of heaven, Revelation 12 verse 4. Other sources, like the Apocalypse of Abraham and the Testament of Solomon, add to the list of fallen angels, including beings who tempt humans and rule over specific sins or territories. Interpretive perspectives. The fallen angels have been interpreted differently across theological and philosophical traditions. Broadly, there are three main approaches: literal, symbolic, and mythological. Literal interpretation. In this view, fallen angels are real, spiritual beings who were created by God but fell due to their own free will. This interpretation is prevalent in conservative Christian theology, especially in Catholic, Orthodox, and evangelical traditions. The fall of the angels is seen as the primordial rebellion, preceding even the fall of Adam and Eve. This view maintains that Satan, once a glorious archangel, led a rebellion against God out of pride and ambition. The other fallen angels, now demons, serve him in his ongoing war against God's kingdom and influence human affairs through temptation and possession. Symbolic interpretation. Many scholars, especially modern theologians and biblical critics, view the stories of fallen angels symbolically. According to this perspective, the narrative reflects human struggles with pride, power, and moral failure. The fallen angels are personifications of human vices or warnings against overreaching ambition. Isaiah and Ezekiel, for instance, are understood to use the imagery of fallen angels metaphorically to condemn the hubris of earthly rulers. Lucifer, in this view, is not a literal being but a symbol of prideful rebellion. Mythological and cultural analysis. Some scholars examine the concept of fallen angels in the broader context of ancient Near Eastern mythology. Similar stories of divine beings who descend to earth and become corrupt can be found in Mesopotamian, Canaanite, and Greek mythology. For example, the story of the Titan Prometheus, who defies the gods and brings fire, knowledge, to humanity, parallels Azazel's role in Enoch. This comparative approach suggests that the fallen angels may represent an amalgamation of various mythic themes adapted by the Israelites during periods of exile and cultural exchange. Theological implications. The doctrine of fallen angels plays a crucial role in understanding the problem of evil in Christian theology. Their fall precedes the fall of man and thus provides a cosmic dimension to the origin of sin. According to Augustine and later theologians like Thomas Aquinas, angels were created with free will. Some chose to love God, while others chose pride and self-exaltation. The existence of these beings provides an explanation for the presence of evil spirits and demonic activity in the world. Moreover, their punishment serves as a warning to humanity about the consequences of rebellion. Islamic perspective. In Islam, the concept of fallen angels is treated differently. The Quran does not support the idea that angels can sin, as they are described as perfectly obedient to God, Quran 66:6. Instead, the figure most analogous to Satan is Iblis, who is a jinn, not an angel, Quran 18:50. Iblis refuses to bow to Adam out of pride and is cast out of God's grace. Some Islamic traditions mention Harut and Marut, two angels sent to test humanity in Babylon. They taught people sorcery but warned them against using it. While some see this as an example of angels falling, Orthodox Islamic theology maintains that true angels do not disobey God. Fallen angels in literature and culture. The motif of the fallen angel has permeated literature and art for centuries. John Milton's Paradise Lost offers the most influential literary depiction, portraying Lucifer, Satan, as a tragic anti-hero who declares, "Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven." Milton's Satan is proud, articulate, and sympathetic in many ways, a reflection of Enlightenment concerns with individualism and rebellion against tyranny. Romantic poets such as Blake and Byron also reimagined the fallen angel as a figure of defiance and creativity, often aligned with the artist's struggle against societal norms. In modern pop culture, fallen angels appear in movies, books, and television shows as complex, brooding figures who struggle with redemption, love, and identity. This evolution reflects a shift from viewing them as purely evil to seeing them as tragic, misunderstood characters. The identity of the fallen angels is a rich and multifaceted subject that blends theology, mythology, literature, and psychology. Whether seen as literal beings, symbols of rebellion, or cultural archetypes, fallen angels continue to captivate human imagination. Their stories raise essential questions about the nature of free will, the origins of evil, and the struggle between obedience and autonomy. In religious contexts, they serve as cautionary tales about pride and disobedience. In literary and cultural representations, they reflect the complexity of the human condition, the desire to ascend, the pain of failure, and the possibility of redemption. Ultimately, the fallen angels stand as enduring figures in the spiritual and moral landscape of humanity, simultaneously feared and empathized with, despised and admired. Their fall from grace reminds us not only of divine judgment but also of the frailty and grandeur of the will. In ancient lore, few figures are as enigmatic and feared as Azazel, the angel of chaos. Cast from the heavens, he defied divine order, teaching forbidden secrets, metalwork, weaponry, and mystical arts, to humanity. In Enoch's mythology, Azazel's rebellion sparked upheaval, unleashing corruption and violence upon the earth. His fall exemplifies the dangers of unchecked power, of knowledge misused. Today we peel back the layers of myth to uncover Azazel's forbidden role, exploring how he shaped the boundary between celestial purity and terrestrial chaos. Join us as we venture into the shadowy realms of Enochic tradition, where secrets beg to be revealed. Christian demonology: the shifting identity of Azazel. Christian demonology, a branch of theology that systematically classifies demons and explains their origins and roles within the spiritual cosmos, has evolved through centuries of biblical interpretation, apocryphal literature, patristic writings, and medieval mysticism. Among the many enigmatic figures populating this dark theology, Azazel stands out as particularly complex. From ancient Hebrew scapegoat rituals to medieval depictions of demonic hierarchy, Azazel's identity morphs from fallen angel to demon lord, sometimes even merging with the figure of Satan himself. This essay explores the evolution of Azazel in Christian demonology, examining how his role transitions through scriptural traditions, early Jewish apocalyptic literature, and ultimately into medieval Christian demonology. By examining these transformations, we gain insight into how the Christian worldview absorbed and reinterpreted older mythologies to fit its theological framework. Azazel in ancient Hebrew tradition. The earliest mention of Azazel is found in the Hebrew Bible, specifically in Leviticus 16, which describes the Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, ritual. 2 goats were presented to the high priest, one was sacrificed to Yahweh, and the other was sent into the wilderness to Azazel. And Aaron shall cast lots upon the 2 goats, one lot for the Lord and the other lot for Azazel. Leviticus 16 verse 8 RSV. This passage is cryptic. Scholars debate whether Azazel refers to a place, a demon, or a symbolic act of removing sin. However, in Second Temple Judaism, particularly in the apocalyptic tradition represented by the Book of Enoch, Azazel becomes more than a mysterious name. He becomes a rebellious watcher, one of the angels who defy God and fall to earth. 2. Azazel in the Book of Enoch, the fallen angel. The Book of Enoch, an important apocryphal text excluded from most Christian canons, provides a crucial link in Azazel's transformation. In 1 Enoch, particularly the Book of the Watchers, chapters 6-16, Azazel is portrayed as one of the chief leaders of the rebellious angels who descended upon Mount Hermon and took human wives. And Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, and he showed them metals of the earth and how they should work them. 1 Enoch 8:1. Azazel corrupts humanity by revealing forbidden knowledge, including warfare, cosmetics, and magical arts. His actions result in widespread sin, leading to divine punishment. Unlike some of the other watchers, Azazel is singled out for especially harsh treatment. According to Enoch, the whole earth has been corrupted through the works that were taught by Azazel. To him ascribe all sin. 1 Enoch 10:8. This is a pivotal moment in demonological thought. Azazel becomes not just a rebellious angel but the embodiment of corruption, the original source of human evil. God commands the angel Raphael to bind Azazel and cast him into a pit in the desert, to await the day of judgment. 3. From Enoch to Christian thought, demonization of Azazel. Although the Book of Enoch was not canonized by most branches of Christianity, it profoundly influenced early Christian theology, especially its demonological framework. The Enochian depiction of fallen angels, spiritual beings who taught humans forbidden knowledge, served as a prototype for later Christian understandings of demons. As Christianity developed in the early centuries AD, Azazel's name was not as prominent in canonical scriptures, yet the ideas he represented, angelic rebellion, the origin of evil, and cosmic punishment, remain central. Church fathers like Tertullian and Origen, though not mentioning Azazel by name, echoed the themes found in Enoch. In Christian interpretation, fallen angels were transformed into demons, and the chief of them, Lucifer or Satan, became the embodiment of rebellion against God. Within this context, Azazel begins to blur with Satan. By the medieval period, demonologists sometimes treated Azazel as an alias or alternate form of the devil. 4. Medieval Christian demonology and the classification of demons. Medieval Christianity, particularly from the 12th century onward, saw a surge in systematic demonology, influenced by both theological speculation and popular folklore. This period sought to map the hierarchy of hell, often mirroring the angelic orders in heaven. Texts such as the Lantern of Light, Dictionnaire Infernal, and grimoires like the Lesser Key of Solomon reflect this impulse to classify demons in ranks and roles. In many of these medieval texts, Azazel is presented as one of the prominent demons of hell. His identity shifts from the corrupted watcher of Enoch to a fully fledged demon prince, often listed as a subordinate of Lucifer or as a demon of the wilderness and chaos. In the grimoires of Western occultism and magic, Azazel sometimes appears as a standard-bearer in hell's army, a guardian of hidden knowledge, especially martial knowledge, a tempter of mankind through pride, vanity, and sorcery. Some late medieval and Renaissance demonologists go further and identify Azazel as synonymous with Satan, or at least with one of his major lieutenants. This conflation is logical within the Christian mindset, which often portrayed all rebellion against God as ultimately satanic. Azazel, the one to whom all sin is ascribed, in Enoch, easily became equated with the prince of demons. V. Azazel in occult and esoteric Christian traditions. Outside the official theological structures of the Church, Azazel continued to appear in mystical and magical texts. These esoteric traditions, particularly those influenced by Hermeticism, Kabbalah, and later Rosicrucian and alchemical writings, often reinterpreted Azazel's role in more symbolic or mystical ways. In some grimoires, Azazel is invoked as a spirit of knowledge, particularly in rituals meant to gain power, secret wisdom, or military success. His associations with metallurgy, weaponry, and forbidden arts persisted, reflecting his role in Enoch as the bringer of civilization's darker tools. One of the most famous references to Azazel appears in the Goetia, a section of the Lesser Key of Solomon, though he is not listed among the 72 demons. However, modern occult practitioners often include or invoke him, sometimes associating him with Lucifer or Samael. 6. Azazel and Satan, distinct or identical. One of the most debated aspects of Christian demonology is whether Azazel is a distinct being from Satan or simply another name for the same adversary. While canonical scripture rarely mentions Azazel by name, Satan is a central figure in both Old and New Testaments. The key distinctions lie in origin and function. Satan is typically portrayed in the New Testament as the great adversary, the tempter of Christ, and the accuser of mankind. See Revelation 12, Luke 4. Azazel, rooted in the Hebrew ritual tradition and expanded through Enoch, is more associated with the origin of sin, specifically through revelation of forbidden knowledge. However, both figures are bound by a common theme: opposition to divine will. Over time, the Christian imagination increasingly collapsed these identities into one another, reinforcing a dualistic worldview where all evil flows from a single ultimate source. In some medieval texts, Azazel is part of a triad or infernal trinity, alongside Satan and Beelzebub, representing different aspects of the demonic agenda: pride, lust, and wrath, for example. This theological structure allowed demonologists to assign specific sins and corruptions to different spirits, making Azazel a key figure in the temptation of humanity. 7. Modern interpretations and legacy. In modern Christian thought, Azazel is not frequently mentioned in mainstream theology. However, in scholarly and esoteric circles, he continues to be a topic of fascination. Contemporary theologians and historians view Azazel as a syncretic figure, part biblical scapegoat, part Enochian rebel, part medieval demon. His character embodies the evolution of how ancient religions externalized evil and built mythological frameworks to explain suffering and sin. In popular culture, Azazel has seen a resurgence through novels, films, and TV series. He appears as a demon in Supernatural, as a villain in the X-Men universe, and as a central figure in various horror stories. These portrayals often draw from his ancient reputation as a corrupter and deceiver. For modern occultists and Luciferian groups, Azazel is sometimes revered as a symbol of rebellion against tyranny or as a source of forbidden knowledge. This echoes his Enochian role and affirms his place in the mythological imagination as a defiant bringer of power and autonomy. The demonology of ambiguity. Azazel's journey from Leviticus to medieval Christian demonology reveals the fluidity of religious myth-making. Originally a mysterious figure associated with the wilderness, he becomes a cosmic villain in Enoch, a demon prince in Christian tradition, and a symbolic archetype in modern spirituality. His identity is never fixed. He is sometimes a scapegoat, sometimes a watcher, a fallen angel, a demon, a lieutenant of Lucifer, or even Satan himself. This ambiguity makes Azazel a powerful symbol in demonology. He embodies not just the personification of sin, but the evolving understanding of evil itself. Through Azazel, we glimpse how Christianity, borrowing from its Jewish roots and adapting to changing cultural fears, constructed a hierarchy of hell to explain the chaos of the human condition. He is, in many ways, the theological shadow of divine law, standing just outside the sanctuary in the wilderness waiting. Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah. The figure of Azazel and his role in chaos and impurity. Jewish mysticism, particularly as articulated through Kabbalah, offers a rich and complex view of the spiritual world. Unlike the rationalist traditions of medieval Jewish philosophy, Kabbalah embraces mystery, symbolic language, and mythic cosmology to describe God's emanations, the structure of the universe and the dynamics of good and evil. Within this framework, certain figures, though not always prominent in canonical Jewish texts, are deeply reinterpreted and expanded. One such figure is Azazel. While briefly mentioned in the Hebrew Bible, Azazel evolves through later Jewish mystical traditions into a symbol of impurity, wilderness, and chaos. In Kabbalistic cosmology, Azazel becomes associated with the left side of divine emanation, opposing holiness and alignment with divine order. This essay explores the role of Azazel within Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah, tracing how this enigmatic figure became emblematic of rebellion, impurity, and the dark, chaotic dimensions of existence that challenge divine harmony. Biblical origins of Azazel, the scapegoat and the wilderness. The earliest mention of Azazel appears in Leviticus 16, within the context of the Yom Kippur ritual. And Aaron shall cast lots upon the 2 goats, one lot for the Lord and the other lot for Azazel. Leviticus 16 verse 8. One goat is sacrificed to God and the other, the scapegoat, is sent into the wilderness to Azazel, bearing the sins of the people. Scholars and rabbis have long debated who or what Azazel represents. Is Azazel a place? A spirit? A demon? Some classical commentators such as Rashi interpreted Azazel as a remote, rugged cliff, a symbolic location for removing sin. Others, including Ibn Ezra and later mystical thinkers, suggested that Azazel was a spiritual being or force, a demon of the wilderness. This ambiguity sets the stage for Azazel's later evolution in mystical and apocalyptic traditions. Azazel in Second Temple literature, the Book of Enoch. The figure of Azazel gains significant mythological expansion in apocalyptic texts written during the Second Temple period, particularly in the Book of Enoch, 1 Enoch, which was influential in both Jewish and early Christian circles. In the Book of the Watchers, 1 Enoch 6-16, Azazel is portrayed as a fallen angel, one of the Watchers who descend to earth and corrupt humanity. Azazel's role is unique. He teaches humanity forbidden knowledge such as weapon making, cosmetics, enchantments, and warfare. He is blamed for corrupting the earth with sin, pride, and impurity. The archangel Raphael is instructed to bind Azazel and cast him into a desert abyss until the final judgment. In this apocalyptic vision, Azazel is no longer just a symbolic wilderness figure. He is a demonic corrupter, leading both angels and humans astray. This version of Azazel strongly influenced later mystical and esoteric Jewish thought, particularly within the Kabbalistic tradition. Kabbalah, a cosmic map of divinity and evil. The mystical system of Kabbalah, especially as developed in the Zohar, 13th century Spain, and later Lurianic Kabbalah, 16th century Safed, offers a sophisticated cosmology centered around the Sphirot, 10 emanations of divine energy. In this cosmic structure, all reality flows from Ein Sof, the infinite and unknowable God, through the Sphirot. These Sphirot are usually divided into right, chesed or mercy, and left, gevura or judgment, sides. The balance between these polarities sustains the universe. However, Kabbalah also recognizes the presence of impure forces, known as the Sitra Achra, Aramaic, the other side, a realm of demonic or unholy powers that exist in opposition to the holy Sphirot. These forces are not separate from God but represent the distorted reflection of divine energy when it becomes unbalanced or misused. It is within this symbolic framework that Azazel becomes more than a myth. He becomes a representation of the chaotic, rebellious, and destructive forces of the left side when it is detached from its divine source. Azazel in the Zohar, wilderness, impurity, and the left side. The Zohar, the foundational text of medieval Kabbalah, mentions Azazel as a demonic ruler, often associated with the desert and sexual impurity. The desert itself becomes a symbol of spiritual desolation, removed from holiness and structure. In Zoharic symbolism, Azazel is sometimes paired with Lilith, the demonic feminine archetype. Together they represent aspects of impurity and seduction, feeding off human transgression. Azazel in this context is not simply evil for evil's sake. He functions as part of the cosmic balance, absorbing impurity during rituals like Yom Kippur to cleanse the sacred space. Here, Azazel embodies the other side of holiness, necessary but dangerous. Without the existence of such a figure to receive and contain impurity, sin would overflow into the holy realm. The goat sent to Azazel, then, is not merely expelled, it is offered to this demonic force as a way of diverting judgment and cleansing the community. In this way, Azazel paradoxically serves the divine plan, albeit from the shadows. The left side, Gevurah, din, and the danger of severed power. To understand Azazel's place in Kabbalistic thought, one must delve into the structure of the left side in the Sephirotic system. The left side includes Gevurah, severity, din, judgment, and ultimately Samel, the angel of wrath and destruction, who is often considered a key force within the Sitra Achra. Azazel is sometimes linked or identified with Samel, or portrayed as a lesser demon operating within Samel's domain. Both figures exemplify the disruptive potential of unbalanced judgment, which, when disconnected from divine mercy, chesed, can lead to harshness, tyranny, and spiritual chaos. Thus, Azazel is a product of divine judgment run amok, severed from its root in holiness. In Lurianic Kabbalah, this severance is explained through the myth of the Shevered Hakalim, the shattering of the vessels. When divine light poured into unready vessels during creation, the vessels shattered, releasing chaotic sparks. These sparks fell into the realm of Kelapot, husks or shells, where impure entities like Azazel reside. Azazel, in this view, is a holder of fallen sparks, a being sustained by divine energy that has been diverted and corrupted. Redemption involves extracting these sparks from the realms of impurity and restoring them to holiness. Wilderness and chaos. Azazel as the Lord of the Desert. The desert is a recurring theme in Jewish mysticism. It represents spiritual exile, a place of testing, temptation, and encounter with the demonic. Azazel's domain is the wilderness because it mirrors his essence, formless, uninhabitable, and spiritually barren. In mystical commentary, the wilderness becomes the mirror of the soul's exile, the chaotic space where God's presence seems hidden. Just as Israel wandered the desert in a liminal state, so too does the soul pass through wilderness experiences, encountering Azazel-like forces that tempt or destroy. Kabbalists interpret the scapegoat ritual as a symbolic drama of casting chaos out of the sacred center. By sending the goat to Azazel, Israel removes spiritual toxins, offering them to a being who thrives in such desolation. Azazel and the human psyche, temptation, projection, and purification. Beyond cosmology, Kabbalah frequently maps spiritual forces onto the inner life of the individual. Azazel, in this context, becomes a symbol of inner temptation, ego-driven power, and the urge to rebel against divine order. Just as the scapegoat bears communal sin, Azazel represents the projection of human guilt onto an external figure. This projection is both dangerous and necessary. It allows people to externalize impurity and engage in ritual purification. The mystical lesson here is not to worship or fear Azazel, but to understand his function. He is a necessary part of the cosmic system that channels negativity away from the holy, allowing for balance and healing. Azazel in later Jewish esotericism and folk tradition. Later Jewish mystical and magical texts, especially those influenced by Kabbalistic demonology, continue to explore Azazel's role. He is sometimes invoked or warded off, in amulets, incantations, and protective prayers. His name is associated with accusation, sexual corruption, and destructive power. In Hasidic and later mystical traditions, the figure of Azazel is less emphasized, but the themes he embodies, wilderness, chaos, and the need to subdue the other side, remain central to spiritual practice. The mystical meaning of Azazel. Azazel, within Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah, is far more than a scapegoat or fallen angel. He is a powerful symbol of the cosmic struggle between order and chaos, holiness and impurity, divine structure and rebellious force. Positioned on the left side of the divine map, Azazel represents what happens when judgment and power are disconnected from mercy and love. But paradoxically, he also serves a redemptive purpose, absorbing impurity, marking boundaries between sacred and profane, and reminding humanity of the delicate balance that sustains the universe. Through the lens of Kabbalah, Azazel's presence is not an accident or mere evil. He is a necessary adversary, a force that reveals the consequences of imbalance, and a shadow through which the light of divine harmony shines more clearly. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the mysterious and chaotic legacy of Azazel. From forbidden teachings to his exile into the wilderness, Azazel's role in Enoch's mythology continues to echo through ancient texts and modern interpretations. If this journey into angelic rebellion and divine judgment fascinated you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more explorations into biblical mysteries and ancient lore. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you see Azazel as a villain, a scapegoat, or something more? Until next time, stay curious, stay questioning, and keep uncovering the secrets hidden in sacred history.